now on that course. And right now I still serve as a reservist at the test wing in the safety office. So that's what I did in that part. For NOC WD, that was all electronic warfare. That was a fantastic part of my career. That's where I took a lot of what I did from active duty and got to flip it around and really start working for the EA community. Became an AOQ 218 SME, and I'll talk more about what my expertise is in a minute, where I really was working with the air crew. I was programming the receivers, the jammers, and making it so that the crews that were flying operational missions were making it work. That was fantastic. And then after about 10 years of doing that support, I moved into building and running some of our EW labs. That included for the E18G, and then all the TAC Air is what we'd call it, labs as well, and then moved into F-35. But during that whole time period, I was supporting, working up here, doing a lot of stuff as well. So let's go to the next slide. So I want everyone to know what I'm strong at, because then you should also be able to understand what I'm not strong at. I might have experience at it, but what I really have done a lot in is intelligence mission data, IMD, working a lot with our emitters, weapons, platforms, making sure that those relationships were input correctly and going to our air crew. So if you hear me start talking the 18G, you hear me start talking that level of detail, that's been my background for at least the last 15 years. ELINT, I was a collector. I got to go out and collect that stuff and see it worldwide. Fantastic opportunity to see the things that we work with and we test against. And then with that's going to come order of battle. So a lot of that intelligence data collection, the technical piece of analyzing it, seeing it, hearing it, literally hearing it, and then sitting down with our CTTs or 1 in 5s after and analyzing it. It was really solid for my career. Sensor engineering, it's a big part of what we did, and we do that for all of us who work with MDF type of stuff. How do we make it so our sensors can see what we're trying to detect so that we can either avoid it, attack it, or somehow collect on it, something along those lines. And that's really what I studied. So for my PhD, I got the opportunity to study how do we make it so we can optimize how our receivers can scan and detect emitters and radars faster and better. A lot of work went into that. We used a lot of that work with optimizing, not surprisingly, EA6B, E18G. So that was a fantastic part. And a lot of that, I had to get into data analysis. Let's go to the next slide. That's what I kind of want to emphasize to the folks here is where we're going and things that you should be focusing on and things that I focus on so you understand my perspective. So I'll start off with collaboration. A lot of the work that we need to do in electronic warfare, we need to be collaborating with other groups, with other teams. And that's really what's going to make us be able to do well with that. I know it gets real easy for teams to get competitive and want to do it your way. You want to do, you want to build that software, that code, and sometimes that makes it difficult to build a bigger product. And that's a big point of emphasis for me, is to make sure that we're focusing on our core competencies and working with other teams and their core competencies so we can build a better product and do things better. Intellectual humility, really just being humble. I find that electronic warfare is a huge and very agile concept, and with lots of new information. Actively go out and get information, learn new stuff. Don't assume that you know it all. I don't, and so you'll hear me ask a lot of questions, and I would expect the same for everyone else. There's so much to this and evolves so rapidly, you can never know it all. I certainly don't know it all, and so please expect questions from me, and feel free to ask them of me as well. And then lastly, which I think is probably most important, critical thinking and innovation. We hear that a lot, and I'll tell you right now that it's not just genius. A lot of it's going to be hard work. It's going to require that collaboration. It's going to require the humility in working with other teams to do that, being patient, looking at old problems, new problems from a different perspective, and hearing other ideas and trying things and failing and being persistent and how we pursue those, that's a big part of electronic warfare. And I see that across all of our groups and all of our domains and all of our services. And so that's one of the things that I really emphasize, and I would, so some of the values that I think really make us good at electronic warfare, and we need to continue to pursue those. These aren't the only things, but some of the key things that I try and hit on. So that's me. That's my background, and these are some of the things that I value and pursue. And again, the other thing I would also say though, my door is always open. You can call me, email me, come on up. If you got questions, things you want to talk about, come on up. So that's what I have. Sir, I'll turn the floor back over to you. All right, let's go ahead and go to the, okay. So supervisor of the quarter is Aaron Fong. So Aaron Fong coming up, if he's here. So Aaron's the lead at the 418th, working on KC-46 and VC-25. And really what Aaron has stood out for mentoring and coaching a team of 5. He's had a significant role in a program that's over $3.6 million in terms of execution, improved the test schedule by 66%. He drove the EW plan for the KC-46 IOT&E, and perhaps I think one of the more influential things is to develop the innovative new engineering training. Again, that's important. All right.
Obviously on behalf.
All right. Next, for the engineer of the quarter is Daniel Katz. Also not here. All right. Slow Jam, you're doing a great job. So let me read a little bit about him. So F-22 LO and system effectiveness engineer, and what he worked on was he enabled a $35 million F-22 survivability investment, developed a novel software tool for looking at F-22 RCS, and it enabled the ACC fleet to track its LO status and health. So again, that's fantastic work for the fleet. All right. And for the technician of the quarter, Jeff Fessenden. All right. Let's wait for him to get up here before we read about all the great things that he's done. Okay, so Jeff is an electronics technician, works for EWS, logistics and maintenance. So some of the big things he did, and by the way, I think our facilities people, they're constantly going to be the type of people who are saving huge amounts of time in terms of by averting workaround measures. He's an electrical SME, which is always going to be critical, helping to design and install electrical upgrades to support Nellis and JSE build, averted prolonged mission impacts by coming up with those novel solutions. He oversaw the motor control center upgrade and validated the proper circuit connections for the system's operations. Again, thank you for everything you've done. Great job. All right, war for the warfighter. So next slide, that is going to be Alex Mendez. He may not be here. All right, Slow Jam, come on up. Fantastic. All right, so Alex works for a classified test effort in Palmdale, and he's done fantastic work there in terms of delivering fixes to the warfighter, led a 7.5-hour RCS test. It's a long test that required 5 different pilots and personnel across 3 different ranges. And with that, it verified and validated war-ready assets. And with that, he also saved the program more than $600,000. So again, fantastic job, Alex. Thank you. All right, for the team of the quarter, that's going to be the JSE acquisitions team. So if you're, yep, come on up. And I'll wait for Captain Luckman to get up here. So let me just emphasize the team awards. Really is important that that's when a team is going to come together and start working on all cylinders, and it requires everyone. Captain Luckner is accepting for the entire team, but I really want to emphasize that it requires everyone doing what they're supposed to do. And this was a tough one. So they executed 8 major contracts worth over $46 million. They required over 103 different contract documents to be approved. They had to reshuffle FY 2021 funding actions in a very short time period. And with that, they also had to get concurrence from AFATEC, AFWIC, and the AFTC commander to be able to do a lot of this work in a very short time period. So again, great job, great work, everyone on the JSE acquisition team. Yep, and here's everyone on that team. All right, and last one. Test team of the quarter, the B1 test team. This is a huge team, and I don't know who's going to be accepting this one, but we do have team leaders. Okay, fantastic. Let me wait for the folks to come on up, and then I'll go ahead and read what they did. Absolutely. So this is a joint project between 771st, 772nd, the 419th. Okay, so again, note the collaboration there and all the people pulling together as a team. A lot of work involved with this. So this was over 640,000 PFS 6.42 BAF test that required, coordination across all of those organizations. This led to an ACC fleet-wide design impact. All 10 high priority customer test objectives were achieved, which was more than 1,000 data points, 500 gig delivered on time, and collected 100% of the must-have data. Again, a lot of work goes into having that type of success. Great job, B1 test team, the 771st, 772nd, and the 419th for all the hard work they did. Thank you.
This is to certify that the Air Force Commendation Medal, 4th Oak Leaf Cluster, has been awarded to Technical Sergeant Scott W. Keith for meritorious service from 1 October 2019 to 18 January 2021. Technical Sergeant Scott W. Keith distinguished himself by meritorious service as Maintenance and Logistics Section Chief, Maintenance and Logistics Division, 412th Electronic Warfare Group, 412th Test Wing, Edwards Air Force Base, California. During this period, Sergeant Keith managed the 412th Test Wing's second largest equipment account. He overhauled and implemented asset management processes that increased visibility and accountability by 20%. Additionally, Sergeant Keith was selected as the group's focal point for critical personal protective equipment requisition. He swiftly distributed 400 masks and 30 gallons of sanitizer in 130 bottles. His efforts were pivotal to the Test Wing's code response. Finally, Sergeant Keith tackled a no-notice training requirement by completing a crane operation course. He then led a CV-22 crash-damage disabled aircraft recovery support team. Sergeant Keith trained 7 personnel personnel and directed crane operations critical to mission success. His keen leadership skills and technical expertise established 1st Air Force Special Operations Command capabilities and returned the aircraft to fully mission capable 3 months early. The distinctive accomplishments of Sergeant Keith reflect credit upon himself and the United States Air Force.
All right. Thank you very much. I love giving out awards because it really, again, gets back to signifying all the great things that we do. And when I was talking with Tech Sergeant Keith here, that's the 5th commendation award he's gotten. So I want to applaud all the folks that have done so much to kind of keep pushing the mission on here. It's amazing to hear what we do. I love recognizing people. I know it's a little bit of bling and we're kind of in this COVID shutdown again, but I want to thank everyone and even my stand-in stunt doubles for coming here today so we can actually recognize those people. But another thing, we already said hello and to the good Dr. Metz, but if you go to the next slide, please. We got a lot more hellos, so I'm going to read through these, and if anyone's in the audience, stand. And if you're out in virtual land, hit that little virtual like button or something so I feel a little better. All right, so Dr. Bill Metz, please stand. Savannah Farr, are you in here? All right, Savannah. Oh, I recognize you. Works right downstairs from us. Jesus Palazulus, I just killed that pronunciation, but if Jesus is here. Delaney Sorrell. Marlon Woodside, who left us, came back, is still part of us, but welcome back to the team. Chris Chung, again, someone who left us, but then recently came back, just in a different role. The good Chris Chung. And then our 2 new DOs, Phil Claw Woodhull, I know you're sitting here somewhere, thank you. And Nacho, awesome. Thanks, you guys, for welcome. So welcome to all the new folks in the EWG. All right, but with that also means it's PCS season. We already talked about 2 retirements that somehow miraculously came back. I don't know if that's a regeneration or however you want to call that, but we have some farewells, if you'd please go through these. Benjamin Bailey, Stephanie Cardona, she's actually moved on to take on some very large contract administration roles with JT4 within the test wing and the test center. Chris Chung, we've already talked about. Gary Johnson, Michael Ogma, Robert Street, Dom, Stephen, Marilyn, Bandit Ream, Rabdo, Schwevos, Whitney, Cole Whitney, Jake Reed, most of my, 3/4 of the military staff in the entire wing. Or not wing, sorry, in the entire group. So bid fond farewell to the folks as we all travel on to that next part of our Air Force and or life's journey. Next slide, please. All right, so this gets me to where I get to start doing my commander's comments. And could you guys, let's move these flags so that we can kind of move around, if you would, please. And that way I can walk around and we can kind of have some slides behind us and we'll talk to that. So I really appreciate it, guys, without me thinking and being able to do that. So I know we've talked many times, and if you could, maybe we'll blank the screen for a couple seconds or just a lighted screen if you can, so I can just kind of talk from the heart again. I know you guys have probably heard me do this. I promised I wouldn't get as emotional as I did when I talked about people desecrating the floors of Congress. but I'm going to also talk about another piece that really gets to me. And so if I do get a little bit emotional, I apologize up front, right? I'm going to hit back on that resiliency thing. I think I've already talked about it. I've talked about how COVID impacts that. And how do we get to resiliency, right? And in my mind, there's tons of monikers for it. The Air Force has like 4 core tenets, right? And I kind of boil it down to really almost everything part of resiliency has to center around you and how you're centered, right? So for resiliency, for me, right, gets to faith, family, mission or purpose, and health, right? Health has many parts. Some people say spiritual. Some people say physical. In my mind, health is how well do I eat? How fit am I? Am I medically sound? And I put faith as separate things. So faith, family, mission, health. And the reason I wanted to hit on these is, I've seen some amazing ups and lows. I've been gone on vacation for 2 weeks again, or not 2 weeks, but a week or so. And I got a chance to go see my mom who has dementia, right? That's great. In counter COVID, we're trying to get through that isolation. A bunch of us have shots. I was able to go see her. That was amazing, right? A little bit about family. And so, that's a high. I also had another amazing high is my wife was the officiant for a mixed race marriage of my niece to Nadim Abdullahi, a Ethiopian immigrant. Oh my gosh, how can I get more than impacting some of the strengths of America, talking about religious, ethnic, racial diversity that I got to see and experience that same day. And by the way, that couple lives a mile from where George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. Right? So how does that not talk to something I should talk about? Because, that's been important things that we've talked about over this last year. So again, amazing high, right? So, and so then let's talk about why are we resilient, right? Because the world is a sine wave, right? Everything that happens with us is sine waves, right? Sometimes you're on those highs, like I was in the last week, right? So now I'm going to hit on lows, right? So what's happened since then? One of my best friend's mothers died from COVID. Right? It's real. It's real. Right? It's still here. Okay, I don't think I need to say much more about that. My mom has fallen and broken her hip. She's currently in surgery in Grand Forks, North Dakota to replace her hip. All right, all that's happened since those 2 amazing highs. Wow, right? How do we get resilient, right? Family, faith, mission and sense of purpose for us. I mean, that's amazing because I'm going to talk all about that here towards the end of my commander's call. How do we do mission and purpose better, right? But health, I'm hitting on all these, right? All right, so that's not it. I'm going to go back to another high, right? And this one's going to be the hardest for me to talk about. My aunt, I had to call my aunt, right? My mom's sister. Hey, my mom fell, she broke her hip. It's a fairly clean fracture, all that. She's going to go and have surgery. Hopefully it's low risk, right? But if you all know, anytime you put a dementia person under anesthesia, it's ugly, right? If you have dementia, you do not recover from anesthesia well. It's a fact, right? It's a medical known thing. So I'm talking to her, telling her about this low. And she hits on a high that she had. She's giddy. My aunt is giddy. Why is my aunt giddy? Well, she's had tremors for 10 years. You know what that, right? When your hand shakes and all that kind of stuff. And a month ago, she had a surgery where they implanted electrodes in her brain and a little pacemaker-like thing so they could electroshock her brain to try to cut down on those tremors. Okay. So I'm telling her about my mom breaking her, thing, good friend's mom passing away. And she's giddy because she goes, Jay, I can drink a cup of coffee. I don't have to eat like a dog. These are exact words, right? And wow, you go, oh my God, little things, right? And there's even one more that even got to me more, was she said, for the first time in 10 years, I can write my name. Wow. Come on. Sometimes I think we overlook the basics that we should care about. And sometimes I think we overlook those just amazing things that happen out there, and or we take for granted simple things in life, like drinking a cup of coffee without spilling it, eating your own food and writing your name, right? Something that we learn in by 4 or 5 years old. Okay. All right. So, wow. Highs, lows, resiliency, all that kind of stuff. And, I just had to share those because those are so apropos to everything we've done the last year, right? And because I'm going to start talking about COVID here in a couple seconds, right? And, we might have to say, oh, geez, guess what? We're going to have to wear a mask again. Get over it. Wear your mask. I don't know, right? How simple can we get? Get a shot if you can. Simple answer, right? Inoculations will matter. It will be mandatory for military and all civilians within a month, right? I mean, that's the plan. Don't know for sure, but the president has said so. I believe when our chief executive makes a statement like that, eventually policy will follow, right? I will also say that COVID numbers on base right now are the highest that they've been in a long time. And that's why you will probably see us go to Bravo, right? I already alluded to that in my previous email, right? Hey guys, we have to double down now. I do hope and pray that this is a 4-week to 6-week thing. Don't quote me on that, right? I hope that we can quickly kind of tamp down this little huge surge that we're having, right? We were very blessed the previous year where the base was actually like the sea of green amongst red. Well, it's not a true statement today. So, but we have to respond. But we know how to do this. It's not that hard, right? We can do this. Because now it gets about execution, right? That's also something I've talked about before. How do we execute our mission, right? And that's with some diligence. And so we just got to practice and do the things that we've already know how to do and just double down on them, right? So help a neighbor, right? Let's think about resilience. I care about how people are, hugging other people, all that basic stuff I think is good. But when we have to do certain things for COVID, let's just knock them down, do them. Hopefully we'll get through them and we'll press on. All right, so those are a couple of my notes, which wasn't even per script, but I just thought I had to talk about them. So let's talk a little bit more about mission. And if you'd bring me a slide back up, let's talk about some awesome things that are going on in the mission. And one of them is we have strategic, guidance and intent from everyone up our chain of command through General Heiger, through Dr. Bjorkman and General Deerteen, that we're allowed to start all the processes to stand up a squadron for JSE. I think that's awesome. I think that's great. That's a big organizational change, right? And here's some of the stuff that we talked about, right? And if you notice, I want you to really look at some of those words, right? A virtual test range squadron. Wow, that's not JSE. But if you think of it, it's actually what you're doing, right? JSE is the platform. It is the combination of a multitude of digital software modeling tools that creates an environment so we can have a digital range. That's amazing. We are standing up the next test range in the test center's arsenal. That's pretty darn cool, right? And so we've got tactical abilities to do this. Another cool thing is someone suggested, hey, why don't we see if we can ask for the 410th flight or test squadron as the heritage for this squadron. And we've got heads nodding up and down. Now, we haven't finished the formal staffing of all this up through AFMC, up to the Air Force staff. So some of those nuances might change over the next year. But the point is we have agreement on the vision of where JSE has to go and how it's going to fit in the future. So I think that's an amazing change that we got, right? So And we basically had tacit approval of a small amount of reorganization, right? We're going to, in this reorg, we're going to try to organize the IFAST under this, because in my mind, it aligns like, actual mission entities and gives us a better consolidation of effort in the long term, right? But that means there might be some short-term consternation, and we got to get this whole thing approved first, right? So there's a stuff to do, right? But that is a big intent over the next year for us to try to organize and present forces in a way that's aligning us with everything the SecDef and all them says. When I had the matrix coming down here with, that digital revolution that we're trying to do, this is kind of part of that, right? Because this is where you would test digital twins before they actually bend metal. So I think that's exciting. All right, next squad, please, or next slide, please, or next squadron, please, whichever. Here's a little bit more of kind of an organization chart. I'm going to have a couple of these so you can kind of see how that goes. Again, this is in the package, but I look at all these numbers when we come down here. Hey, that in the end, by FY22, if you looked at between matrix and assigned personnel, right, you're looking at about 121 people. I think that's pretty amazing. That's a huge growth. There's challenges to all that, but I'm excited for that. Next slide, and it'll kind of show you a subset of the Nellis OL, right? Because we're going to have 2 operating locations, 412 test wing, reigning, ruling at Nellis with all the, peeps at weapons school. Yeah, we're really going to have to geek out hard because that's a pretty tough crowd, right? When we're going to try to talk technical smack with all the people going through, trying to get their gray patch versus the blue patch. So I hope they treat us proudly in the future. But Nellis OL, and then I think I have one more slide in there, hopefully. Let's see. I guess I don't. But how that's going to go. So there's a couple other things I can announce for that. We have hired we are in the process of hiring, as long as the bureaucracy catches up to it, Mr. Joel Ostrowski. There's a V in there. I have a hard time pronouncing that. Joel comes to us, 33 years of experience in our United States military, Air Force, or civilian, supporting us. A GS-15 for the last 7 years. So he's coming to us with a wealth of technical experience and actually acts, like in a almost assistant tech director kind of role right now. Really technically adept. An amazing addition to that JSE team. Another thing we also got with the JSE is we have Lieutenant Colonel James Peterson coming in, and he will be coming in. He is a material leader. Sorry, he is not a material leader. He is a material leader select, i.e. he is on the command list for material leader / squadron. He has a history of working at the 771st. Hoorah. He has also a history of working elsewhere in our test enterprise, so truly understands the roles and missions of the electronic warfare group. And he's worked at Air Force Life Cycle Management Center and has spent the last 5 years working acquisitions at the NRO, trying to figure out how to integrate space and do a bunch of things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's handpicked to come in and help be a military deputy and to also help the JSE team. Now, he doesn't get here for a while, right? Because it's military, it takes forever, but he has orders, so amen. That's a great thing. His goal is to be here sometime in January. So we also know that we had recently put out an announcement for the Vice Umberto position. We're still working through bureaucratic stuff on that. More to come on that soon. But a little bit of some of the exciting things that we're going to do. All right. I'd also asked to try to get some questions from folks. And so here's some of the questions. And what were your goals for the EWG and the rest of the time here? Awesome question. I think I already talked to one, which was JSE organization stand-up. since we're all coming back from the joy of being able to spend some time on vacations with family or just on vacations over the summer, I'm going to hit that next commander's call. But that's a great question. I want to revisit with our senior staff and some of the people those 9 focus areas that we had started a year ago, so we can kind of grade ourselves on them. I think some we've done an amazing job on. I think others we've done, maybe B work. But we'll talk about that next commander's call. All right, what's your stance on mask mandate and teleworking? I think I made that clear already. I don't know what else we say. Let's protect those that we care and dear about, and that should be our fellow neighbors, our families, and our fellow coworkers. So, we're going to go to HPCon Bravo. Got it. All right, so can we get better cell service and Wi-Fi in the BAF and IFAST? And I think that is a great note. And I do understand that, we recently had upgraded some of that, and that was a 3-way funding split between EWS, JSE, and CyberDebt. And that was supposed to help all the buildings. Don't know if that's all the way there, if we still think we need to, get a little better, because we do work in a big metal building that probably doesn't transmit signals very well. So maybe if we need another repeater, another piece of that network somewhere, absolutely we can look into how we fix that to provide that Wi-Fi access to folks. I know they do that very strongly, Kirk, right, in the customer areas and all that. But again, big metal building, lots of concrete stuff, doesn't pass signals, right? That's the whole point of the anechoic chamber. But even in our towers, we get there. But so yes, I will 100% support any of that. We might have to figure out how to fund that if we really got areas that weren't fixed. I thought we had fixed that, but we'll look. So if you've got some feedback about, hey, this corner of the building, it doesn't work really well, let's make sure we get that to the front office, and we'll get Kirk, PJ, and the rest of the team on figuring out how we can fix that. All right, what can be done about our mice problems? That was a good question. First thing is be clean. Clean up everything. That's probably the most important. I do know that we did a concerted effort in our little hooch between, I'm pointing at Irene Wuckner because it was the JSE team, but she did an amazing job. We also did upstairs. We got a bunch of traps and stuff like that from people, put them up, but we actually did amazing cleaning of the whole building, got expanding spray foam, put it in a bunch of cracks. Literally had to figure out how to stop something coming in from the ceiling into our area. Did some simple things like that, right? And I think we're all allowed to do that by legal reg. And if PJ or someone tells me we can't, then we'll have to figure out a different way. But, I think that's step one, right? Clean up. It's got to be a concerted effort between you and all your neighbors, because we know that these vermin run underneath the floors and all that, and see what we can do. We can also try to get pest extermination, exterior, all that. I know that doesn't work the best, but definitely willing to do those things. All right. The big thing about once you get tracks and sticky pads and all that, it's kind of nasty. And you got to make sure that you don't put them underneath the fridge so far that no one knows what's dying. I heard a nasty story about that, right? And you got to check those traps regularly. Anyways. All right, just stuff I've heard over the last year. All right, how can we get more military people to come to the EWG? That's a great question. And, that is a lot about billet structure and a lot about how we get accessions. We've lost more people than we've gained. We're actively trying to pursue that. But it's hard, right? Because it's where do we put all our billets? So I don't have a perfect answer to that, but I think it's good. Can we have more training opportunities for Microsoft Office, all that? I got a little bit of notes on that one. Education and training puts out data calls on this all the time. I know we can go to Kathy or sometimes called Kat, but Kathy and the business team and our training folks to help us with that. We are really pretty good when it comes to training, right? We're the government. One thing we do reasonably well is we pay people to go get education and training, probably way more so than other sides. So if there is something you really need, let's go first to our, your squadron kind of training folks, And then if we need to go up to the group folks that also service, right, all the people that are in the divisions and that, and we'll try to find a way to get you in. All right, let's see, what else do I have? How can we have more morale days or First Fridays? I hope people see that I was really big on trying to bring people back into the office as quick, and I pushed that boundary hard. The last time we came out of COVID, I will do it again. I think we pushed the boundary really hard about having group functions smartly, right? And I will 100% support that again when conditions allow. We also did probably the biggest family day on the base that had been done across the entire base that I know of, and I'm sure maintenance or someone would say, no, we got more peeps, and we had 207 instead of your 204 or whatever. Anyways, but I think we did an amazing job with Family Day, focused on bringing that kind of that resiliency factor back in. But I will say, when it comes to morale events, I'm a big supporter of these, but it takes people to help organize, and I would really ask people to help volunteer, because those things don't just happen on their own. But I think, where's Kim? She will attest that I will go jump over hurdles to bust down barriers to help make things happen, like taco trucks. If we have a need that we see that's legal and not immoral or unethical, I will bust doors down to help make that happen for our groups. But we need volunteers. So I would love to see, stronger clubs coming back in. I know at the group level, I know there's some at the squadron levels, but 100% supportive. But please volunteer. Those things don't happen on their own, right? I know this sounds corny. I would love to do a dining in with guests with our entire group. Now, guess what? That would be really boring if it was only 14 military, because I can easily impress upon the need for them to be there for mandatory fun. But it would be awesome to see a bunch of faces going to the grog bowl, saluting, making fun of themselves, spilling stuff all over them, and a whole bunch of other amazing traditions that we have while we wear our tuxes. Anyways, I'm a 100% supporter of all those kinds of things. So, come on, COVID, let's be gone, because I'd love to do more of those. All right. Are there plans to improve, expand parking, especially with JSE? I think the answer to our parking lot question is our parking lots are what our parking lots are. We do not have funded plans for that. But I did love hey, can we have covered parking? I went, dang, that's a great idea. How do we spin this? So we're trying to figure out, get some engineering talent on there. I think we're going to put solar panels on them and say it's actually an energy saving thing, or I don't know. But, I'm willing to take really weird ideas like that and go push it. I don't see many others on base. I've seen them at other bases. So who knows? That's a great suggestion, right? I would never have thought of how do we ask for that. But so keep those kinds of questions coming. All right. So those were the questions that had come preset in here. And I know that it's 11:47 because I can actually read the clock in the back, even staring into that big bright light for all of you in the back. I think that means I'm actually reasonably on time. So do I have, you can keep it on. It's acceptable. All right. Any other questions from the floor, or are you getting any like real-time texts and likes or dislikes? Tell me, how am I doing on the social media front? All right. So I'm just going to assume that everybody out there is hitting the like button so that I feel a little better about us today. So thanks. I can see the little bubbly lights going up across my Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. I totally appreciate that. All right. Do I have any other questions for people in the audience that I could potentially answer about anything, where we are, where we're going? Any other questions that I can take? And it's a really quiet audience. Really quiet audience. All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds. Nobody? They just liked the mice questions and that. I still think the best question I got over the course of this year and almost 2.5 months, to be almost exact, is what kind of grass do you like? I don't know if you guys remember that question. That one still has perplexed me. I've still thought of that quite intelligently. That was a great question. So no question is too hard for J. Colonel Mace Orson to at least make fun of himself and try to answer. All right. If we don't have anything more, I'll proceed back here, make sure I hit all my notes before I put us in a closing. So hold on. All right. I'll take my mic back. I don't see anything else. I am excited to be here. I said it at the beginning. I said it at almost every commander's call. And that's because we get to do an amazingly cool mission, right? Again, I got to explain our mission like to my aunt, a different aunt, over the course of this last year. And you're like, well, what is electronic warfare? Well, people at Edwards, they test the plane, make sure how fast it can go, make sure the, plane doesn't depart or, flip around when the pilot yanks back on the joystick. There's a lot of that, but we're the really cool end, right? We say, how does the plane go somewhere and actually execute the mission? Because when it really goes somewhere, there's a lot of people wanting to kill it, right? And our adversaries are damn good and are taking monumental technology leaps ahead in how they're actually executing, denial and deception, not denial and deception, but right, in our A2, AD, anti-area, anti-denial technologies coming out of our near peers, right? They're not thinking the same way we have purchased and organized our systems to fight. So we have to get at it differently. That's in a C-state change, right? And that's what has been asked by the national, all of our national security directives, our new NDS statements, right? How do we get at that 6th gen and all that is to really counter those true hard near-peer threats, right? And JSE is just part of how are we going to go fight in those real environments. So back to that mission, I think it's great. I tell them, we do everything that's trying to kill us. We try to make sure that our pilots can counter that and live to return. That's one great part of survivability. But also that we can actually put our ordnance and do the things that we have to do to push our ball down the field. And that's everything from countermeasures to the right stealth shapes of our aircraft to how we get comms 500 miles away from one plane to another plane so we can actually execute something when the bad guys are doing the same thing to us. So I think it's an awesome mission. It's a great thing we get to do every day, and I love that we're here. So I'm just going to leave you with one last word, and that is one that General Higer also says a lot. We have to compete. That's very important because we are the ones that actually have to help make all this happen to prove that those systems can do what they can do so we can fix them and actually get in, knock the door down,